Got it. All right, we're live on YouTube now. Welcome back, everybody, to What's the Takeaway? I'm Carrie, and this is Denise. And the premise of our show is to give you an opportunity to remove things from your life so that your life just gets better and better. And we talk about all aspects of life. So please join us every week because we're going to pull out something new, fun, and exciting. And we do try to create some themes for the month. This month, our theme has really focused on personal finance and what things that you can do to set yourself up for success. And we just came off of a whole month of organization. So that's good too. So now that you're all organized and you're ready to work and you're going to just create all kinds of success, what exactly do you need to do to manage your money well, especially in an uncertain economy? And so today's topic is really about that. How do you design a wealth budget? So Denise, do you want to talk about our takeaways for today and where we're going?
Absolutely. Let's talk about the takeaways. I like this topic because it's not one that I personally do. So I'm going to learn a lot today. So the three takeaways are: number one, take away consumption to find production. Number two, take away your wants from your needs. And then takeaway three is your rapid rusters.
Rapid rusters, yeah.
Rapid rusters. And that'll be explained in the conversation. So these are awesome. I love this. And I like doing things that I don't know that much about so that I can learn too. Instead of, we learn as we research and we learn as we talk to people, but this is something that I've always been a little resistant to. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I have to say, it's coming off of a show that I was in your seat last week, right? Because you were talking about all these great ways to find support and help and outsourcing. And please go back and watch that show because it was amazing. And I said to you, I don't do any of this. So, that's good. I think you and I challenge ourselves with these shows as well, because it's not that we know everything. It's just the one thing we know is that when you start to remove stuff from your life, you find the things you really want. And so let's start with takeaway number. Well, I'm going to back up for just a minute and talk a little bit about budgeting and how it can really, really serve you. Because I think when people hear the word budget, what comes to mind when I tell you, Denise, you need a budget? How does that make you feel? Like
restrictive?
Restricted. Okay.
Yeah, it's restrictive. I think budgets are, I understand how there could be an important tool, but I feel like, I don't want even myself telling me how I have to spend money or can't spend money, right? Maybe another word could be like spending plan, or maybe that's just not necessary.
Well, I think actually it is, because when you do ask people, just like you are very much in the majority of people, when they hear the word budget, they usually skew negative. It does have to do with restriction. Sometimes people even say it's a punishment. So, who knows where that comes from, but maybe, they were restricted because they did something wrong as a kid. And then it was like, turn on the restrictions. So I want everybody to erase that. And I really like what you said. And the word that you said is super key, which is plan. And so if budgets are not like handcuffs, right, for your money, or big locks on, on the vault, think of them more like a roadmap. You wouldn't go on a trip without a map, right? Because you need to know where you're going. And what I say is you really shouldn't be a steward of money unless you know what your responsibility is with it. And I think sometimes just a gentle change in view when it comes to money can actually empower people and make them really, really excited about it. Just like a trip, right? When I go on a trip, I feel happy. I'm excited. When I get there, I'm really excited, right? It's like run out of the car, jump off the plane, as long as it's on the tarmac already, and just go for it, right? You're on vacation now. It's awesome. So the same thing, if I have a wealth goal, then my budget is just my roadmap to get there. And I want to be excited and happy the whole way I'm going, right? So it should not feel punitive, certainly, and not even restrictive, honestly. So we have three takeaways.
I wanted to say something, keeping it with the theme that you just chose. When we plan our vacations, we have to stay within a budget.
Oh, that's true, right?
Like I mean, it might be nice to spend 10,000 on a vacation, but probably no, because you're going to be paying for it for a couple years, right? And so
Right.
that is budgeting, and we do that. So
Okay.
I guess I'm not totally anti-budget, or it's not.
Right.
It is in my life in ways, but I think I can learn a lot today.
Okay. Yeah. And I think most of us probably fall into that category, myself included. I don't have every single solitary penny, spoken for necessarily. All right. So our three takeaways. So the first one I wanted to really talk about is the difference between being a producer and being a consumer. And so it's really important. I said this to you once, and we had a really good conversation about it. And I said, you know what? Your eyes are in the front of your head, right? Looking out. And until we had selfies and cell phones and mirrors and stuff, we really didn't see ourselves. And I think that was by design. We're not really on the planet to focus inward, or else our eyes would be turned the other way, right? We're really there to focus outward. So then the question becomes, why are you here now and not 2,000 years ago or 500 years ago or 500 years in the future?
Mhm.
I think you've been given some really cool, unique talent, right? Which means that you're supposed to actually add that to the community, add that to the world. I know you just came back from a really amazing fundraising time, right? That you had dedicated your time to giving back to a really important cause. So I think being oriented out actually is a really great way to budget. And the first thing that I always recommend to people to do is when you get money, give some of it away. And it does a couple of things. Firstly, we know chemically, it actually gives you a boost of dopamine. And then when you have that moment, and then when you connect with the other person that you give the money to, whether it's in person or by check or however you're sending the money, you actually get a boost of serotonin when they say thank you. And I think if you give something to someone, whether it's your time, your talent, or your money, you're going to get a thank you. So those two chemicals actually keep you living very, very long, which means you get to enjoy your wealth longer, right? So that's a good thing. So just think about gift as being physically really good. And then the second thing it does, it also tells you, you know what, maybe all this money isn't really mine. Maybe it's supposed to be given to somebody else for something else. And maybe something else is going to come into me, right? So a gift or a talent that I have goes out, and then a gift or a talent that someone else has comes in. So there's this really nice reciprocity. If we were just consuming all the time, it would be imbalanced, right? So that's not good. So the easiest way to actually build a budget is just to give the first part of it away, however you want to do that. And the second thing it does is it tells you, oh, I have less to work with. So now I have to think more about my money. And I think those decisions, make you smarter consumers. So that would be my takeaway number one. Now, and I was talking to my daughter about this, we're going into like a time of inflation, right? We see gas prices rising, which means that small businesses could go out of business because they can't afford fuel. They can't transport goods. You can't buy goods. Goods go up in price. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Name something that you use every day that you love, that you want to share with the audience. Like it can be, anything that you purchase.
I'm going to say coffee.
Coffee. Okay. So how many cups of coffee, if it's not too personal, do you like to drink in a day?
I really only drink one, but I enjoy it a lot.
You like your cup of coffee and you look forward to it, and it's something that you really enjoy. Okay. So at what point, and how much would you say that cup of coffee costs?
So if I'm buying it out, it's probably about $5.50.
$5.50. Okay. How much are you willing to spend for the coffee right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because what we've actually done is we've bought, a pound, and we make it at home a lot. So unless I'm traveling, because it's more economical to do that.
So do you know what it costs you? Just out of curiosity, it's not $5.50. Do you have any idea what it doesn't have to be exact.
Much less. It's much less. So if we spent $40 a month on coffee now,
yeah,
and we each have a cup of coffee every morning, it's much less.
Right. Because that would be basically 4 or 5 days otherwise, and you're going a whole
Correct.
30 days for 2 people, right? So
Correct.
that's
And
like
so
60.
to your point, I think
Yeah.
then if
Mhm.
I'm out and I spend $7 on a cup of coffee, it's okay because it's once in a while.
Right. So as prices go up, one of the things I would have you consider is like, what's your ceiling? Like there is a point, like, would you pay $20 for a cup of coffee?
I'm sure I have, but it was in Italy, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a difference, right?
Right.
I'm sure I have. Probably not.
Yeah. And so I would invite the audience with prices going up to really evaluate your loves, and now actually is a good time to stock up on things that would actually reduce your quality of life, right? So for you, it might be coffee. I know for me, it would definitely be tea. And just having a few staples around to offset some of the price increases of other things. Like these are good budgetary things that
Mm.
you can do, right? But then also create categories for yourself. Like this is my afternoon break and this is what it costs, right? So if it's coffee or tea, or maybe you eat some kind of food or a shake or whatever it is, it doesn't have to necessarily be food, right? Or is there something, maybe you like to purchase whatever it is that you like to purchase. It could be clothing, it could be stationery, it could be a trip, it could be whatever. Like what in those categories, in those big categories, chunks would you distribute your monthly budget, right? Just try sort of like time blocking, right? Like have you seen time blocking improve your business since you
Sure.
incorporated it? And one of the things with time blocking is that in a block, what can happen? Is it only one thing?
Typically.
Oh, okay. So I thought maybe I'm getting this wrong. So I thought with time blocking, like if I had a half an hour time block, I might have 2 or 3 things that I could do in that time block that could kind of go in and
No,
in
I
and
would
out.
do less
No.
of the time block, but that's
Okay.
me,
Okay.
I'd say, okay, for this hour, I'm breaking it out into 15-minute blocks of
Oh,
time.
so you really, really very, very
Yeah.
specifically time block. Okay. So you could do that with your budget, but I think that maybe would be way too restrictive or too detailed, right? If you're going from like really a very loose budget program to something a little bit super, super high end in terms of its like specificity.
Yeah.
But what you can do is let's say you have a $40 coffee budget, but then you have $100, I don't know, dining out for lunch budget. You may see those as similar things and just like time blocking, whereas I may say like I could work out for an hour, I could read for an hour. Those are both like personal growth things. Those could be interchangeable. Start thinking about your budget that way too. Like I could give up the $100 for lunch just to make sure that even if my coffee bill went up, I could still have my coffee.
Yeah.
And then you're not going outside of budget.
Makes
You're just
sense.
reducing your expenses. So you're
Yeah,
still getting where you want to go because you're not increasing what you're spending as prices go up. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think a lot of it has to do with being cognizant
Yeah.
of what you're doing and not just if you're mindlessly spending, it's going to impact you, right?
And emotional spending too.
Sure.
I mean, that's a big part of the next thing, which is needs and wants. And so what I like to share with people is, sometimes needs can sound so stoic, right? Or so like, I'm not a monk, I'm not a minimalist, I don't live out in the middle of, I don't know, the northern part of Wisconsin where I'm, off the grid kind of thing. I live in a regular suburb, in a regular city, like most Americans, and I am not prepared to go off the grid or do something really, really restrictive. But there is a way to decide what a need and a want is. And I think sometimes people need a good litmus test. So what I would recommend is asking yourself before you purchase something, is this coming from my head or is it coming from my heart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make a wealth building decision, it's got to go from your heart to your head, or else it probably isn't a good investment. Okay. So when we talk about our needs, we usually talk about shelter, clothing, food, and transportation, right?
Mhm.
All of which are going to be affected by higher gas prices. So that those needs may actually increase the amount of money we spend. But we still have wants because life isn't just about survival, right? Life is about living and enjoying and
Yeah.
celebrating
Thriving.
and
Mm.
thriving, right? And so how do you get from your heart to your head? Like when if you name something that you saw that you would say would be, give me an example of what would be an emotional purchase for you.
Oh, goodness. Okay, let's see. Something like if I'm traveling, let's just say I'm traveling
Yeah,
and I see something and I'm like, oh, I'd really like that because it'll remind me of here.
right.
But I really don't need it.
Hmm.
But that something is pulling at me, like, oh, but it'll really remind me. And so it'll be a nice reminder. When I travel, I really only buy things that people make and I meet the people who make them
Oh, that's beautiful.
because that's what I want. Like, I don't need clothing, handbag, like all of that, unless
Yeah,
I'm meeting the people who actually made them. I'd
right.
rather buy a piece of art or a jewelry that I know the person who's selling it to me made. Like that, that's what, but do I need any of those things? No. So sometimes, you know what? It's just in the money you spent on the journey and not in the things you bring home.
Which is something that the new generation is really focused on, which I applaud them for. That's kind of wasn't our generation. We came out of have parents and grandparents that were like post-depression people, right? So everything was about just getting by or saving up or preparing for the next disaster, right? And we went into like an economy of great plenty, really.
Mhm.
Right. And so we were like the consumer, the baby boomers became like these big consumers. But I want to go back to what you said, because I think we don't want to rob, spending money on people who may be actually supporting a local economy, right? I think what you're doing in going on a vacation and spending money, like by supporting someone like that, is great. But I think you can also move it from your heart to your head in some interesting ways. Like, so the question is, could you somehow create some kind of you're going to laugh at this, but I'm almost thinking like an affiliate program, right? Like Denise is super
Yeah.
smart when it comes to affiliates, right? So like, what if you met someone on vacation and they made beautiful, I don't know, linens, right? And then you had a way to actually market their material in a way that they wouldn't otherwise get the information out, right? Maybe you could get your tablecloth for free,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
In exchange for X number of contacts or X number of, I think we're going into an economy,
It's a bartering.
yeah, where you can, and it's an affiliate really, right?
It
I
is.
mean, that's what you're saying is you're saying, I'm going to share what you have and put your name out there so more people can appreciate what you have. But don't discount the value of that, right? Your network has a value. So
Oh,
that's kind of how you
absolutely.
go from heart to head. Another way you can do it is there
Hmm.
a way for something memorable to also be functional in your life? Like I know people that will, maybe they'll buy a cup or something they're going to use and then they donate like a whole set of, you ever have like, I don't know, I do this all the time. Like I buy dishes for my kitchen, like 3 or 4 of them break. Like I know that happened when my kids were little. So instead of buying a set where everything is like super matched up, right? When you travel, you can actually replace one of those broken pieces one by one, right? And you still
Yeah.
have the souvenir and you were going to spend money on replacing your dishes anyway. But you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Like, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It just teaches you to think more about
Yeah. I love
what you're
that.
spending.
And it has more
So
meaning.
it has more meaning, right? And so from your heart to your head, try to get your purchases. It's okay if they start here, but then be a smart person and think it through a little bit. And for a vacation, I would say you could actually do that before you go. You could Google things, look online, try to figure out what a country or a town is known for, and look for the best deal or look for some young up and coming, artisan, if that's
Artisans.
something you like. Yeah. So,
And have them
or
sign it.
Yeah, that's really cool too.
It'd be so fun, or at least date it so that you know when you purchased it or where you purchased it. Yeah. And then that becomes a completely different expense.
Well, yeah, because it becomes an experience and then it could become an heirloom, right? It could be part of your whole family
History.
story,
Hmm.
which I think makes spending a lot more meaningful as opposed to just going, I don't know, like randomly consuming things,
I like
just
that.
this, that, the other thing, right?
It's
So
a great idea.
things like that. All right. And then takeaway number 3 is one of my fun ones. So I call these rapid rusters.
I love that.
So what's a rapid ruster? And in economic terms, they talk about depreciation and stuff, but I think that's hard to remember. So what's a rapid ruster? So I say everything in the world has something called an R2 score. So your rapid ruster, R2, right? Score. So what's your R2 score? So when you look at something, you have to ask yourself, is it going to break down? Am I going to have to pay money to fix it? How much is that going to cost? Do I have to replace it? How long is it going to take for me to replace it? And then, is it actually going to serve me? Is it going to be an investment in me that's also going to make me more valuable? So I'll give you an example. And this is sort of in our world. So I apologize for using something so close to what we do, but I think it makes sense it's the easiest example for me. And that is when I chose to move from kind of your standard drugstore purchases to buying my things from doTERRA essential oils. And there were a lot of reasons why that was a good economic decision. I mean, the first reason was I didn't have to drive my car to a drugstore. It came right to my house. I could budget because I purchased only once. Have you ever gone to a drugstore and you're like, I went in for one thing and all of a sudden you come out with a bag of stuff because that's on sale and that's at the checkout and they're designed for like those last minute, what are those purchases called? There's a name for those.
They're PIPs.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
But I forget the acronym. I'll remember. But
okay,
you should ask, have you ever gone in and not done that? Because I think that's probably, less times than going in for one thing and coming out with that one thing. That almost never happens.
And then almost never happens. And the other thing I was noticing, because when I did switch to doTERRA, one of the things that someone recommended that I do was clean out my medicine cabinet, like literally go in, look at every bottle, turn it over, what was expired, what was half used, what was what I call like gunky, like when you buy things in the drugstore and it looked really great. And then you open it up and now it smells a little off or who knows what it was. Right. And I don't even remember why I bought it. So all that stuff got thrown away because most of it I couldn't donate. And I think I had like a big towel on my floor of my bathroom and I just kept unloading drawers and putting things down. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like so much wasted money. Right. Yeah. And the great thing about switching to something natural, right, and essential oil based is that it has a long shelf life, doesn't break down, doesn't get gunky, right? I have a perpetual use for it because there's so many ways to use one essential oil. It's not just I bought the one thing for the one use. And I find drugstore products are really designed for that. Like this is for a cough. This is for a knee. This is for sleep. It's like, no, like my essential oils I can use for 10 or 12 or 30 different things, depending on the oil and my knowledge of it. Right. So
Absolutely.
Those kinds of things, then you really see how you end up with a lot more money. I know when my kids wanted to get into video games, the minute I saw that, I was like, that's a rapid ruster. Because you know what? They're not going to be happy with that video game for more than maybe a year, maybe 2 if it's super popular. And then there's going to be a new thing that comes along. And all of that plastic is either going to get thrown into a landfill, which really makes me upset, or I'm going to have to go out and buy another one, which I don't want to do, and I'm not trying to take away people's fun, but there are other ways to really look at things, right? What do you like to do with things?
Okay, but I'm going to tell you that if you're like my kids, if they want a new game for their whatever system it is,
right?
Because I don't play them.
Okay, me too.
They put together 5 or 6 that they have that they no longer use, and they sell those to
Okay.
pay for. It takes 5 or 6
Okay.
to take one, but they don't. This is what they've been doing the last few years. Now, when I say kids, they're not 12, right?
Right.
But they know that they're never going to play those again, but there's still a small market for them. And so
Yeah. And again, I think that's that generation and I applaud them. I think it's awesome.
it is.
My daughter came home from college and she's reselling her clothes. And
Yeah.
honestly, I thought to myself, who's going to buy these clothes? Right. They weren't expensive and they're pretty worn out. And she goes, oh no, mom, there's like a website for this type of clothing.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was like, okay. And they bundle them, like you were saying, like you're not going to buy like one really nice dress or one really,
Right.
expensive t-shirt. You might buy 4 pair of shorts and, 4 shirts,
Right.
but they're still getting a return on them where I would probably have either tossed them
Or donated them.
or donated them. Yeah.
Right. And so with a little bit of ingenuity and a little bit of, interest and
Interest
activity,
and right.
you can do this. So they do that. I want to tell you that it's called point of view sale,
Oh,
POV
okay.
sale. I forgot.
POV sale. Okay.
But it is where they place things that are
Okay.
so enticing. And this is why when you walk into a drugstore, your favorite, whichever it is, and you have your coupon for 25% off, none of the products that you usually buy, because they know,
Yes.
are
That's true.
25% off.
Right.
Right? They manipulate it so that those prices right then are 2 for X. So you can't use an additional coupon on something that's already on sale. It's really ingenious. The marketing is fascinating.
Right.
They figured it out, but it's up to us to not be. It's like the big box stores. Yes, is
Yeah.
it cheaper? Absolutely. But did you need to spend $340 right then? Probably not.
Probably not. No,
Yeah.
it's true. Probably not. And I think you consume less when you buy less, right? Like if you don't have mega boxes of something, I think psychologically go, oh, I only have a bag this big, so I'm not going to cook the whole thing, right? Or it's a psychology there that I think really
There is.
works in terms of building wealth really, really well. The other thing I would add on to that too is the fact that make sure that in your budget and whatever categories you create, that one of them has to do with like investing, somehow making your money work for you. Now, I know one of the things that we love about doTERRA is that, it's an asset, right? It's not just a business. It's not just a paycheck from time to time. It's something that grows. And that even when we're not working dollars for hours, it's going to pay us back. So having some type of asset in your portfolio is really important. That money is actually working for you and you're not working for it. It's not hour dependent. It's not dependent on your health. It's not dependent, on your time. Those kinds of things can really build wealth well.
No, I love that. I do. It's not dollars for hours.
Yeah.
And also it's always paying you back. It's residual.
It's residual, right? Yeah. And the younger you are, I know we've all introduced this concept to our kids and you can't woulda, shoulda, coulda, but like nobody came to me when I was 21 and said, hey, are you building an asset? I would have been like, I'm studying for my next exam. Like I wasn't thinking about building up an asset whatsoever. So that was, I think, teaching your younger people, because I know a lot of our audiences probably has kids in their 20s and 30s. So.
Oh, absolutely. I'm hard pressed to
pick one.
Yeah. So let's see. Take away consumption to find production. I don't think that's me.
Okay.
Take away your wants from your needs. I'm a pretty good, unless it's something that I just know I'm doing it, but I do it anyway. I'm pretty good at that of going, are you falling into that trap?
Yeah.
So I think it's probably going to be the rapid rusters. I mean, there are, definitely articles of clothing that I know it's only going to be for one wear, and that's not really smart. And I should ask Kira to put it on
Yeah,
Um,
she could put on
Poshmark or
whatever
something,
website
right?
it is that
Yeah,
she,
yeah. And so actually I should do that
there
and
you go.
sell it because I literally wore it once.
Okay.
So I think it's probably number 3 for me. How
Number
about
three.
you?
All right. Yeah, it's interesting. We started this week actually. We started to look at the things that we love, our needs and our wants. So I'm going to say it's number 2 because I just want to know that I have, a few extra like treats that I know that in a down economy I'm not going to spend money on, So maybe it's the specialty items that right now are kind of at that tipping point of price that I'm just
Mhm.
going to go ahead and put away for, maybe a harder day. And
Yeah.
also just to start considering about slowing down consumption, maybe something special isn't every 3 or 4 days things, whereas I was just taking it for granted now that it was going to be part of my day.
Yeah. I think that's a good reminder. I do. Um, I,
But once you get the wealth, we're also going to teach you in the next couple of sessions, right? Like how to invest it properly, things to look out for as you age. So we have some cool shows coming up.
well, and next week we're going to actually teach you about the life planner. It's called the Living Planner, and it's about putting all your information in one place and
I
all the
love that.
information you would need
Yeah.
for anything, anything happened or if someone needed to step in. It needs to be in one place. We have a beautiful guest speaker. Her name is Lynn Lambrecht. Lynn was in the air industry for a very, very long time. And one of the things she did was be around several of the crashes. She worked out with crashes and she understood from them what people had and didn't have in place. And so besides her own personal life and learning that way, she also learned it as she was helping other people kind of put together the pieces again after a airplane crash. And so,
Wow.
but this is fascinating. I just did it with her. I didn't realize what I was missing. So
Okay.
it was very helpful. So I'm excited to have her be our guest.
I am too. I'm going to be like sitting back and the one doing most of the note taking. So
It's
this is good.
fascinating, really.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Denise. And we'll have to check in and see how we're doing on some of these things. And we'll see everybody next week.